Hey everybody, welcome back to one of our little slideshows. We're going to keep talking about earth science, and this time we're going to talk a little bit more about rocks and how they're created and how they're recycled. So our objectives for today is 1, explain the process of how different rock types are created, and 2, be able to replicate the process of rock recycling through drawings and explanations. So after this, you guys should be experts on rocks and how they recycle. So our vocabulary is down here at the bottom. Igneous rock, sedimentary, metamorphic, metamorphism, and rock cycle are the main words we're really going to cover today. There's a lot here. Don't freak out. We'll go through it slowly. So at the top here, what is rock? This is what we're going to be looking at. What is rock? Rock is naturally formed mixture that can contain minerals, rock fragments, and volcanic glass bonded together. So you guys know what a rock is. It's all blended together. It's everything kind of smushed down and compacted into one thing. There's 3 types of rocks. And we can see here, we're going to talk about this one right here, igneous rock. Igneous is just cooled magma or lava. So when magma or lava cools down, it turns into a rock substance we call igneous rock. There's 2 types. There's intrusive and extrusive, and we're going to get into those in a second. There's also sedimentary. If you know about the word sediment, you can already guess what sedimentary rocks can be kind of about. It's deposited material in water, so it kind of sinks out. And then the third one we're going to talk about is metamorphic. So metamorphic is when there's high pressure and heat and it actually changes other rocks. So these are very basic definitions, and we're going to get into more in-depth definitions here in a minute. The first rock type we're going to talk about is igneous rock. If you remember from the previous slide, igneous rock is when lava or magma cools and turns into a rock. So there are 2 types, intrusive, extrusive. Intrusive is when magma or lava cools underground. You can think of inside the earth, intrusive. Extrusive, when magma or lava cools on the earth's surface. You can think of that as exit or extrusive. And if you look down at our beautiful drawings below, we have some little just diagrams down here. So this bottom one down here, this is cooling underground. This is magma that's rising up into a volcano. However, they have some over here that's in a little pocket that has nowhere to go. So this here would be intrusive. So that is intrusive igneous rock. It's magma that is cooling underground. And then here, what we have here is we actually have kind of a volcanic eruption. So we have rock that is cooling outside. So that would be extrusive. So this is igneous rock. Remember, intrusive, extrusive. Those are the big things you got to remember. The second rock type we're going to talk about is sedimentary rock. And if you know anything about the word sediment, you can already figure out what this word really means. So sedimentary rock is formed by minerals and organic material that settle to the bottom of bodies of water. So when I talk about a body of water, I mean like lakes, streams, rivers, things like that. A big thing of water. So what we have here is these little brown dots down here, little floating minerals or rocks or little very small pieces of debris. It could be wood, rock, mineral, granite, anything. And what happens as the stream goes on, they settle down. And they hit the bottom of the stream bed. And what happens is they can start to build up into a little rock and get pressed down by the water on top of them. And when there's so much pressure from the water, it pushes them all together and makes these little rocks. So when all the sediment from a stream is pushed into a little rock, that's called a sedimentary rock. So it's pretty simple, a little bit more simple than igneous rock. There's not 2 words you need to know, but that is sedimentary rock. Third and final rock type we're going to talk about is metamorphic rock. Metamorphic rock is formed by putting a lot of pressure and heat on an already existing rock. So, our example, let's take igneous rock here. Just an igneous rock. We add a lot of heat and a lot of pressure. Let's say it's in the mantle somewhere where it's really, really hot and there's a lot of pressure. All the crust, all the water from up above is pressing down on it. What starts to happen is the atoms inside actually start to change. So that makes up a chemical change. It's changing internally. It's changing chemically. But it also changes physically. It rearranges. And that's when we call it a metamorphic rock. So an example of this is coal. Coal is actually a sedimentary rock. When you add a lot of heat and pressure to coal, it turns into a diamond. So a little bit different. I mean, I'd rather have a diamond than a piece of coal, but whatever. So that's a metamorphic change. That change is called metamorphism, down here in the blue. Metamorphism is the chemical and physical change in rocks due to the increased heat and pressure. So when we take a rock, we add a lot of heat, we add a lot of pressure, it turns, it changes down into its chemical form. The atoms actually change, the molecules within inside them change. So that's our third and final rock type. Next, we're actually going to start talking a little bit about the rock cycle. Last thing we're really going to talk about is the rock cycle. Some of you might already know a lot about the rock cycle, but we're going to go through it very briefly. The rock cycle can get very confusing because it can go everywhere. We're going to start down here at the bottom with igneous rock. So igneous rock, that's magma and lava that is cooled down into rock. Let's say it's extrusive, so it's sitting on the side of a mountain. It's exposed to the weather and erosion, so it starts getting ripped apart. Let's say those molecules, those little bits of rock, the little bits of igneous rock go into a stream and they settle down. It becomes sedimentary rock when it falls to the bottom of that river. Let's say over years and thousands of years, it keeps getting pushed down and down. When the sedimentary rock keeps getting pushed down and down, it has a lot more heat and pressure put onto it. So we know that when a rock has a lot of heat and pressure on it, it turns into a metamorphic rock when it starts undergoing those physical and chemical changes. And then what happens is that metamorphic rock can actually come pretty close to lava and the inner workings of the earth where it's extremely hot and it will actually melt. It's too hot. So it melts. When it melts, it turns into lava. And when lava cools, exactly, turns into igneous rock. So we have this nice little rock cycle where it goes back and forth. Now, the part where it gets really interesting is that this can go many different ways. An igneous rock can melt and go back into igneous rock and go through this cycle by itself. However, an igneous rock can also be put under a lot of heat and pressure and turn into a metamorphic rock. So, these are all connected. Even if you take a metamorphic rock and let's say it becomes eroded, the weather and erosion start taking it apart, it becomes a sedimentary rock. So this can get very confusing. However, what I want you guys to focus on is kind of the outside cycle. This basic little cycle. We'll get more in depth in the other cycles here later on, but I want you guys to focus on that main outer circle here where you see it's just this big cycle of back and forth. Last page, we're just talking a little bit of review from what we've talked about. So, objectives. Explain the process of how different rock types are created. We went over igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic rocks, so we could check that off. Whoa, that is not a check mark. That is a check mark. So, 2, be able to replicate the process of rock recycling through drawings and explanations. That's when we talked a little bit about the rock cycle. It can get very confusing, but we're going to lay it down pretty basic right now, so we can check that off. So vocab you need to know from here: igneous rock we went over, sedimentary, metamorphic, metamorphism, and the rock cycle. The rock cycle we actually didn't really define, but I showed you it. So these are actually words you will have to know, so I do recommend writing them down. When we take a quiz, they will be on it, so be prepared for that. If you have any questions, come see me, or just rewind, take this at your own pace, and take it easy.